Ryan,
Tony, and Crystal.
We can't guarantee that you're gonna look great, but if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the gymwits. That's right, man. You tell 'em.
welcome to the Gymwits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the Gymwits. So, as you know, earlier this fall, I guess I was away for a little bit and I was traveling around the country. I think in the next few weeks I'll be able to actually talk about it. But it got cut short. And, in advance of it, I think initially I was supposed to go like 21 cities or something like that. And the one city that I was looking forward to most was Nashville, or probably the most, maybe one or first or second as far as the cities that I was going to. I was really excited to go. Just a different place, and I think obviously great music, good food. Everyone said the hot chicken was great. And when things got cut short, like that was one of the cities I did not get to go to. But you were in Nashville, so how was your trip out to Nashville?
It was very good. I recorded 6 songs, and the studios and the musicians down there are great. I've had such a good experience with them. They're very professional and friendly, and there isn't a lot of the ego that you see with artists here in New York or in LA, which is a different story. They're really professional, and it was a great time. And I ate pretty well when I was down there. There were some nice restaurants. And Nashville is really like an up-and-coming city. As funny as that sounds, it's like, well, how could Nashville be up-and-coming? It's been, Music City for so long, but it is.
No, absolutely. I think I've heard, I used to think of Nashville as, it's a country music place. If you like country music, you go there. But I've definitely heard far more people over the last 5 years or so really talk about that as a tourist destination, as somewhere where they want to go, not just kind of for the novelty or the music, but that it's really like an up-and-coming place to go to.
Well, the tourism is still huge there. Airbnb is big. People are buying places just for Airbnb because so many tourists are coming in and they need affordable places to stay. The medical field is actually getting big. The colleges there it's all, the colleges are getting, more students that want to go. It's really become a destination. Yeah. It's still a bit of a transient town, so people will live there for a few years and then move on, whether they're trying to chase a dream or whatnot. But it's a cool place, and it's certainly up and coming. And with that will always come really good places to eat. Now it's interesting because the style of restaurant that is down there is definitely different from here in New York, or that you might run into in LA or Chicago, the big cities. So it's a lot of like sort of barbecue places or these sort of bar restaurants. So you see a lot of that. And there's some local favorites as well. And Ryan mentioned the hot chicken, which I really enjoyed. It's just really, depending on where you go, it was really good hot chicken, meaning it's fried. And there's a hot sauce, and they have different levels of heat depending on your taste. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not amazing. Like, you wouldn't go there just to have the hot chicken, but it's solid.
I know a couple people who do go there just for the hot chicken.
Yeah, I don't think it's, and I love fried chicken, but there's a lot of you could get good fried chicken anywhere, and the fact that it's spicy, yeah, it's all right. Yeah. My favorite meal there was at a slightly more upscale place. It had some of the best cornbread I've ever had, and a really good meatloaf with a cream sauce over it. It was just delicious. But I enjoyed much of the food that was down there, and I just enjoyed the experience. So you should definitely go when you get a chance.
Yeah. I'm hoping it'll be a destination. I think the next place we go in the country on a vacation or like a long weekend will probably be Nashville. I think it's up there on my list. But yeah, I was definitely disappointed that I didn't get to go.
And of course now, we're recording this the day before Thanksgiving. I don't know when it's going to go out, but basically after Thanksgiving, it's going to be all like kale and broccoli and spinach, and white meat chicken and salmon from here on. Right? I've gotten fat in the last couple of weeks because I've just been so busy. Yeah. So got to go hit it hard at the gym again and start eating rabbit food.
Yeah. Well, no, Thanksgiving's coming up. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have I think 2 meals tomorrow.
Nice.
So, and my mom, who lives in California but is in New York for the week or for the last couple months, really. She's at my brother's, so she's going to cook, which is good because she cooks very well.
And for our international listeners, Thanksgiving is is basically the celebration of the United States slaughtering all the Native Americans.
I shouldn't laugh at that. That's awful.
I know it's
true.
awful, but
it is morbid, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's morbid.
I kind of
And I don't want to sound too political, but it's like really it's supposed to celebrate our sort of founders and the settlers, but it's like, come on.
I mean,
that's what it is.
Okay, look, at the end of the day, for me, I think all these obviously they're all cultural and they're part. It's ingrained in our culture. So I think I try not to think too deeply about the meaning of Thanksgiving, and you just think of it as we get
give
to
thanks for what we have.
At this point, you get together with family and you just eat a ton of food. It's kind of like Christmas. Like, I'm not religious, but my dad's Jewish, my mom's Christian. My dad says he turned atheist the day of his bar mitzvah. So and my mom tried, and mom's side of the family tried and failed to indoctrinate me. So I grew up pretty much atheist, agnostic, atheist, depending on the time you asked me, I would give you one or the other answer. But I still love Christmas because I get tons of presents. And my Jewish dad would always just shower me with presents on Christmas, and still does. So it's same thing with Christmas. It's become mostly a secular holiday. Now, if you're very religious, I don't mean it to be offensive, and obviously there's gonna be more meaning or a different kind of meaning for you, around that time of year. But the reality is, I think a lot of these holidays, clearly they morph into what they are. So I think, if I think too deeply about, I wake up, Christmas Day and open presents, but I'm an atheist, I'm a bad atheist. Like, no, it's just part of our culture. It's what we do. But yes, tomorrow we will be eating tons of food to celebrate our slaughtering. Basically just an entire
taking over of
taking
many different people. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just pretend that didn't happen.
That's just what what the U.S. but all countries are pretty much good
enough.
at.
Yeah,
just forgetting the wrongs that they've done, and just moving on.
But that's a different podcast.
That's a different podcast. Yeah,
today we're going to talk about how to moderate and control your eating and lose weight. No, we actually have a great interview. What do we have on tap today?
So we have Esther Avant, who is a weight loss coach. And she has some great insight, and she's really along the lines of the gymwits way of thinking, and you guys will certainly see that. So enjoy the interview with Esther. Hey, everyone. We are here with Esther Avant. How's everything, Esther?
I'm great. I'm actually on finishing up vacation on Kauai right now, and
nice.
Really excited to be talking to you guys.
Awesome.
Oh, wow. So what time is it right now?
It's a little bit after 9 a.m.
Okay, got it. So it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon in New York.
So I was wondering, it was windy, and then on the video that I briefly saw you on, you were like, it seemed like you were outside, and it seemed like beautiful and tropical and awesome. And I was like, I wish I was where she was.
I'm in the hotel lobby, and even that is super nice. It's got like a roof, but then it's like open walled. So yeah, I really can't complain.
That's awesome.
Nice. So, Esther is a weight loss coach, which, as we know, is certainly very important nowadays, and it's definitely a big field, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. But as always, the first question we ask is about your own fitness journey and your background. How did you get into fitness?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small town in Maine. And I went to such a small high school that like anybody who wanted to play sports could, like there were no tryouts, nobody got cut or anything. So despite not being particularly athletic, like I played sports, but not well.
Reminds me of me.
And in the middle of high school, I discovered, just like going to the gym and working out on my own, and realized how nice it was to not kind of feel the pressure of a team relying on you or people like watching your performance. So I was really drawn to it because it felt good to exercise. I liked the way it was changing my body. I liked the way it made me feel. And I liked that it was just something that I could do on my own. So I got really into gym workouts in kind of the tail end of high school, when you have to start making like those life decisions, like where you want to go to college and what you want to do with your life. So I have now realized that I was misremembering this quote from Office Space, but Office Space was my favorite movie at the time. And there was some exchange in there about whatever you would do if you had $1 million is what you should do for a job. So I was thinking, all right, I guess if I had all that money, I would just spend all day in the gym, which led me to going to school for exercise science. And that sort of made me realize that spending all day in the gym with clients meant that I had a lot less time to work out myself. But just kind of immersed me in that gym environment, and then working with my clients there is what led me to pursue nutrition certifications so that I'd be more well-rounded and be able to help people out. But that was basically how I started out. Was I just liked being able to, work out on my own and see the changes in my body, see how much better I felt, and then want to help other people do the same.
Cool. So when you made that transition, was that during college, or did you or when you kind of made your transition into, I guess, being a fitness professional, was that while you were in school, or did you finish your degree first and then kind of enter into the fitness industry?
I started in college. So my freshman year of college was 2004. I got my personal training certification in 2006 and started training I went to Boston University, started training at the student gym there. So that's working with either students or professors or, somebody who has access to that gym. And then I started working the front desk at the Gold's Gym right outside Fenway Park. So that was really cool. And I got to see kind of the administrative side of running a gym as well as the actual personal training side of it. And I did those, very part-time when I was in college. And then I got my first job out of college was at a Boston sports club. And I was there for 3 years and did personal training, and then eventually got into gym management.
Nice. So you specialize in weight loss, mostly for women. Now, how did you get into that? What made you decide that was the direction that you wanted to go?
So I guess a number of factors. First one being that some of my initial clients when I was working in a commercial gym were women that I grew very close with, and realized that, they were kind of my ideal client is sort of a woman in her, 30s to 40s who's relatively sedentary, has struggled with her weight for a long time, is, generally like a working professional or, a working mom who just has so much on her plate. And kind of the common thread was that she tends to put everyone before herself. So I saw like all this good in these women, and, everything that they were kind of pouring out into other people, and just how little was left over for themselves. And I was just really drawn to trying to help women like that realize that A, they deserve to put themselves first sometimes and to prioritize their health, and then B, that they can be much more useful to other people when they themselves are healthy. So that was kind of how it started. And, obviously with the growing obesity epidemic in the States, there's just such a need to address the root of people's weight loss, and then also how to keep their weight off once they've made the changes, that there's so many quick fixes out there. And there's so many people that will tell you, I'm going to help you lose, 10 pounds this week, or, buy these pills, buy this plan, buy these supplements, and you're going to drop all this weight fast. And sometimes they work, but what's the point if you're going to end up right back where you started, or even heavier?
No.
The real issue isn't how to lose weight. People can often figure that out for themselves in the short term. The real issue is how to make these long-term changes so that you can stop going up and down and just start being a person at a healthy weight, and not having to, think about it or obsess over it.
Now, Ryan and I have actually done an episode on what we call Day Zero. And it's basically when you're starting a fitness or weight loss plan, sort of your very, almost even before your first step. So now when starting your journey to try to lose weight or try to get healthy, what is sort of the very, almost before you start, and then the first little bit of information or the first way that you like to approach getting someone into that?
So I think one of the most important things for day zero is setting realistic expectations. Something I run into time and time again is that women, and men I'm sure, but since I work primarily with women, I'll say that, that women who are experiencing really great progress are being beating themselves up about their lack of progress. And that just stems from a disconnect between what is healthy and realistic and feasible and kind of what has been put out into the I guess like the internet about, what they can expect. So, when you have all of these supplement companies or multi-level marketing companies or whatever telling you you're going to drop, 30 pounds this month, that, or when you see on Biggest Loser that they're losing, double digits every week, we start to anchor our expectations to results like that, even knowing that they're probably, far-fetched, or these people are in an absolutely different environment. They're doing nothing but, sleeping and working out and being given all their meals, that it's just not realistic. Despite that, we kind of anchor our expectations to those numbers. So when we set goals, even if we say, okay, if the people on Biggest Loser are losing 20 pounds a week, I'm going to set my goal to lose 10. That's half of what they're losing. Surely I can do that. Then when you have a week where you lose 2 pounds, which, as we know in the fitness industry, is a great week, we feel like, oh my God, I fell 8 pounds short. I'm a failure. I'm working so hard. I might as well just give up. So all that to say that I think day 0, it's really important to focus on setting and managing expectations. That, we need to be really clear on what is going to be a good week for you, and not just focusing on the numbers, but also figuring out what other metrics are important to track. So, as we all know, you can't control the scale, you can't control your measurements, you can't control, what your body does on the inside, but you can control how many workouts you do, how you eat, things like that. So I always encourage clients to, figure out what is realistic weight loss on the scale, and then also what are some direct things that they can control, that they can focus on and say, okay, if I get my workouts in, if I make these changes to my diet, then no matter what the scale says, I'm going to chalk this week up to a win. So that's my, my very first step. And then I guess like the day 1 stuff is having figured out what is manageable for them. So instead of saying, instead of my dictating, you're going to work out 6 days a week this week for an hour and a half, and, somebody saying, okay, I'll try, and falling way short, we sit down in that initial phone call and we say, all right, given your schedule this week, given all of the, the pulls on your time, what can you do? Is it 3 5-minute movement breaks a day? If so, let's set the bar there. So day 1 is getting started on whatever those realistic goals we set are, and starting to just kind of check the boxes and get those early wins.
So just sort of piggybacking off of what you said something with a client who's going to try to do this. What is your opinion, just sort of like a little sidebar question, on words like try and hope, and that sort of idea, where this sort of new way of thinking is like, you don't try, you do. You don't hope, you make it happen. So I'm just curious if those words bother you, or if they're just sort of, that's just part of the vernacular and you don't get too caught up on that.
They didn't used to bother me. And then I realized that that was also kind of a limitation that I had with myself, is that like in growing my own business, I would say, okay, I'm going to try to talk to this many people, or, I hope that I'll have a good month and I'll get some new clients. And I realized that those are limiting words. Those are kind of giving yourself an out because you haven't truly committed to whatever you're saying you want to do. So I kind of learned that through my clients, is when they would say, okay, I'll try to get my workouts in, I knew that at the end of the week when we talked, it was going to mean that they hadn't, and that they had kind of built in an excuse for themselves. So I realized that I was doing the same thing with myself and started changing my vernacular. And now I call my clients out on it as well. I say, okay, we're not going to try. We're not going to hope. We're going to set goals that are so achievable for you that there's no doubt in your mind that you're going to achieve them. So if what we've set so far is something that you have to, that you're not really sure on, that you're hoping you'll be able to do, then let's scale it back. If you'll try to get in 4 workouts this week, how many can you get in for sure? Is it 1? Is it 2? That's fine. I'd rather set the goal smaller and have you knock it out of the park and feel good about it, than to end up feeling like we're spinning our wheels week after week, trying and hoping to accomplish things.
So, being in the industry, we both know that the expectations versus reality are pretty distant as far as what we see in the media, what people come in often expecting to do, and even what people kind of earnestly believe they can do versus the reality of life. So, how do you kind of reframe people's expectations to meet a more realistic kind of output? Because I think we both know that your approach is the right way to approach it. But for many clients, when they come in, they do have those kind of unrealistic expectations. How do you reframe it without them being discouraged or being frustrated by maybe not getting the super fast results that they expected, but actually by kind of tempering those and doing it over an extended period of time?
Right. That's a great question. And it's something that I think the conversation has to be recurring, because as much as you can reframe and you can, get everybody on board, of course, you're going to have periods of frustration, especially if you've experienced that rapid weight loss before. And, you're kind of saying, well, last time I was down 10 pounds at this point, obviously what we're doing isn't working because I'm only down 4. But I think really it comes down to kind of an open conversation. I'm very much into having my clients lead where we go. So, if they express frustration with me and say, I want this to be happening faster, I'll say, okay, what we've been doing so far is based on what you told me seemed feasible for you at this point in time. Do you feel like you can handle, a more restrictive diet, or, a more serious cut to your calories, or a major increase in your workouts? And kind of let them guide the conversation. And sometimes it does take a week of that more intense approach to have somebody realize, like, oh, you know what, that's actually not working for me. When I tried to do my 6 workouts for 90 minutes, and when I tried to eat, the very low calorie or very restrictive diet that we set up, I wasn't able to do it. And it can kind of be a reminder of, oh, there's a reason that I was doing it in a more moderate fashion. I think it also helps to revisit their past weight loss experiences. Is when I have an initial strategy call with someone and they're deciding whether they want to work with me, they'll tell me about their past weight loss experience, and they'll often say, yeah, I lost a bunch of weight. It felt really good, but I hated that it was so restrictive, or I hated how much time it took, or I hated that whatever. There were aspects of whatever they did in the past that they didn't like. And despite the fact that they saw results initially, they weren't able to maintain them. So sometimes it just takes, kind of that reminder. Is I'll say, all right, the approach that we're taking right now is based on your past experience and what you didn't like before. So has something changed in that? Or do you feel like maybe it's just that you have to, kind of accept that this is going to take longer than you'd like? And it's always helpful, as I'm sure you guys know as well, it's always helpful to kind of ask the question, if you were to lose 20 pounds, but it took you 6 months, but you never gained that 20 pounds back, would you prefer that? Or would you prefer to lose 20 pounds in 2 months, but in 6 months, you're going to weigh the same as you did before? So that can just kind of put it very, very black and white. Like, yes, it may take longer, but it's gone for good. Or do you want to take less long, and in 6 months, you'll maybe have lost it and gained it 2 or 3 times by now. So I think those conversations are just ongoing, because it is frustrating. And in anything you do, it's frustrating when results don't come as fast as you'd like. But when you look back and think, all right, I didn't gain this weight in a week, I didn't gain it in a month, I gained it over years. That's kind of, it comes off as fast as it comes on, which is annoying, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, and for sure, we know the sort of pitfalls of losing weight and gaining and losing and gaining. We know that the more that someone does that, it actually has sort of detrimental effects on their health. So
absolutely,
what you're proposing, which is the sort of the slow burn, we realize that that's really the best way. But I'm curious what your sort of overall approach is. And of course, we know that every client is different. But say you take a woman who is very average, right, 5'4", with maybe 20 to 30 pounds overweight, generally in good health, doesn't have any injuries, or any dietary restriction that doesn't insist on being vegan or gluten free or something like that. What are your approaches? Do you like to have them do sort of a variety of, say, cardio and weights, or do you like to do more intervals? Now, for the food, do you say avoid all sugar and dairy and processed foods, or is it more about calories? Like, what do you like to do? How do you like to approach it?
Great question. So on the exercise front, I find that most women either do a lot of cardio or they focus on high intensity interval training, neither of which are bad, but most of the women that I've come across, tend to shy away from strength training, either because they're unfamiliar with it or because they believe kind of the myths out there about it making them look bulky, or any of the ridiculous things. So my primary focus with their exercise programming is strength training, and depending on how many days a week we're committed to and things like that, I'd say the typical is 2 to 3 full body workouts a week. And most of my clients are either exercising at like an apartment complex gym or in their homes with pretty minimal equipment. So it's primarily dumbbell based and body weight based stuff that they can do in less than an hour. I'd say 30 to 45 minutes is average. So the focus is on total body strength there, just kind of starting with the fundamental movement patterns, the squats, the presses, the pulls, the hip hinges, and building some confidence there. Just, showing them that they can move safely, not gonna, like turn into a man overnight or any ridiculous thing that they might think. And just kind of reiterate that the strength training complements the diet in helping transform their body into what they want it to look like. And I think there's often a disconnect. Like they'll come to me with, a picture of a celebrity or a picture of, kind of their ideal body. And they'll think that they have to get that the way to get that is through hours on the treadmill and eating as little as possible. So I do a lot of educating on the benefits of strength training and the importance of not under eating. Obviously most of the issues come from overeating, but sometimes the pendulum can swing too far the other way. And now it's like, how little can I eat? Obviously I was eating too much. Now I need to just like starve until all this weight is gone. And it's important to educate on, kind of the different changes that your body can undergo, that you don't want to end up skinny fat either. What you're really, for most women that I work with, the objective is to have kind of that lean, muscular, feminine look. And that's achieved through strength training and through, intentional eating. So in addition to the 2 to 3 strength training days, depending on their availability and willingness, I usually do 1 high intensity interval training day and then 1 longer steady state cardio day. And I kind of consider those 2 like the optional, like if your top priority is your strength, and then if you have time, do, 1 of these other 2. And then on the nutrition front, I really don't like to tell my clients they can't have anything. I take a pretty flexible, open approach to whatever foods you enjoy eating and make you happy. Let's make sure that you can still eat those to a certain degree. So the first thing I do is have a client keep a 3-day food log. And my preference would be in a tracker like MyFitnessPal, where we can get like super detailed with the quantities and the macros and things like that. But depending on, willingness and feasibility, sometimes it's just pen and paper, sometimes it's like photos of what they're eating and drinking. But I want to get a good handle on what like their average is. And then from there, that's where we get into kind of the individualized, like you were talking about, there's no blanket diet that works for everybody. So we kind of look at what are the areas of opportunity. Typically what I see is not eating enough lean protein, not eating enough veggies, relying too much on processed or packaged foods, and just major inconsistencies in intake, that one day it might be, 2,000 calories, the next day is 900. Like it's just like all over the place. So before we even focus on any very specific targets, I say, like, let's work on getting a little bit more consistent just with your day to day. And once, and we'll talk about strategies to do that. And then once we're a little bit more consistent day over day, that's when we can kind of figure out, okay, if you're averaging 1,900 calories a day and you're maintaining your weight, now we know how to start working on a deficit and start dropping some fat. So typically my two priorities are total calories and protein intake. And I'll give a range of those because, as we know, there's no like one magic number that you need to eat, 1,612 calories in order to lose weight. Like everything is estimates anyway. So I'll give about a 200 calorie range and then a protein target, and basically say, like, your goals are to get as close as you can to that calorie range and to hit your protein target. And then wherever else your fat and your carbs fall is fine, because for most people, doing those two things is where the results come from. And there's so much personal preference involved in the carbs and fat that it almost doesn't really matter for the most part. If you're getting into competing or things like that, you want to hone in a little bit more. But for my clients, they can pretty much, use those interchangeably and have one higher than the other on a day-to-day basis, and it doesn't impact too much.
So now, I guess a couple questions. I guess I get to the first one. What are some common errors that people do make? I guess one thing would be, what are common errors that or misconceptions that you see? So things that people do that they think are healthy. And then maybe some common things that maybe even trainers kind of advise their clients on doing that are wrong. So I guess just in general, any kind of common misconceptions or food errors that you see that then as a trainer and a weight loss specialist, you have to kind of correct.
Right. So the biggest misconception that I run into with my clients is the thought that they need to eat as little as possible in order to lose weight. And this at the beginning, like that's true. You don't get overweight from eating too little. But when you chronically diet and just restrict your calories over and over and over again, your body doesn't want to let go of that weight. So it has, those systems in place to hold on to weight, which we know is metabolic adaptation. Usually isn't a term that clients are familiar with, but I have to do a lot of educating on how it is that you can be eating, 800 to 1,000 calories and not losing weight. And yes, there's often the issue of, miscalculating how much you're actually eating, forgetting to log calorie dense drinks or things like that. But I have run into a good number of women who are truly eating very little and not losing weight. And it's very kind of scary for them when I say the first thing we're going to do is increase your calories. They're like, no. Remember, I hired you to lose weight and now you're telling me to eat more. So they have to kind of battle against that misconception and explain that now we need to kind of get your metabolism back to a healthier place. And part of the reason that you've been feeling so low energy and so run down and so reluctant to do stuff is because of how little you're eating. So by increasing your calories, you may actually start to see that scale moving again because you're moving more, because your body is functioning better. So that's one of the big things I run into, is that there's a major struggle with eating enough to fuel their bodies. So that's the big thing. I'd say eating too little protein is something that I see a lot also, and just really not recognizing the importance of it. That yes, calories are the most important thing, but since typically the end goal is to lose fat and not lose muscle, we want to make sure that you're taking in sufficient protein. So I do a lot of educating about the importance of that as well, and ways to increase your protein without, feeling like you're just eating egg whites and chicken, nonstop. Those are probably the biggest two I see with clients. I'd say, overall in the fitness industry and the weight loss industry, there's so much that I take issue with. I guess the biggest one being multi-level marketing companies and the people who work for them kind of forcing these supplements onto people and making it seem like A, you need any supplement in order to be successful at losing weight, and B, you need like the supplements that I'm trying to sell you. So I've had a lot of clients who will come to me and say, okay, I take, whatever, I take Herbalife this, or I take Advocare that, or, they've it's kind of gotten ingrained in them that like I need to rely on this particular protein powder or this fat burner or this supplement stack in order to be successful. And that's just not the case. So I try to educate my clients on, not just the role that supplements should play, which is to supplement your otherwise healthy diet, but also to be wary of somebody who has, financial gain from you, from you doing what they say, that, they have a vested interest in you doing a certain thing and you buying their products, in which case you want to be skeptical of what they're telling you. I'm not saying that, every person who's involved with a multi-level marketing company comes from a bad place or that they're all giving bad advice. But, I just feel like if the core of your, program or system is purchasing a bunch of supplements first, like that's, you're not necessarily getting an honest person who truly wants to help you in the right way. If you think about it, like, do you want to be on these supplements for forever? If you are convinced that you needed them to lose the weight, now are you scared to stop taking them out of fear of regaining the weight? Like, you don't need to be, and you don't want to be relying on expensive and unnecessary things to be healthy. So that's the biggest thing that I battle is like, no, you don't need to continue taking, X, Y, and Z. You need to be eating more whole foods and focusing more on moving and stress relief and sleep. So that's probably my biggest beef.
Yeah. So it's funny. I wanted to do an episode on multi-level marketing, and Ryan and Tony sort of poo-pooed the idea. They didn't really want to do it, but I still want to revisit that. Maybe we'll have you back on to talk about that, because I think it's actually very important. And perhaps you could borrow one of my sayings. And it's basically anything that has the word iso, nutragenics, anything like that, buyer beware. Because anything with that sort of a name,
I totally agree. And I know like it feels like it's uncomfortable for me to feel like I'm like calling out those companies and the people that work for them. Because I know that, a lot of the people do have good intentions, people who get involved.
Sure.
And, they do want to help people. And
yes,
if they feel like these products are why they lost weight, like I understand why they want to like shout from the rooftop, like this is what worked for me. But I take issue, number one, with, kind of lay people calling themselves coaches or trainers without any kind of qualification, when here I am having spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars getting qualifications and getting experience and honing my craft. And,
welcome to the age of the internet.
Right. To feel like we're all being lumped together. I don't want to have to, claw my way out of being lumped in with, with this group.
Tell me about it. And it's also a religion. I think that it's a cult. A lot of those.
That's it too. Is you like these firm believers that it's like you start to call them out, and it's like they release the hounds, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, that was a can of worms. Yeah. But I think it's important to do. I think as uncomfortable as it is, I'm getting more comfortable being vocal about it because it's important.
Yeah. Well, one thing I found interesting is you're looking over your blog. You have some very creative but more just interesting blog topics that like just the topics like some things that we came across, like what causes cravings, is more self-control really necessary, keys to being patient. They're all really a lot of the topics are really things that are really interesting and I think very practical and actionable for many clients. So kind of what's your process for figuring out what you're going to write about? Because I do think that and it's not just me saying it because you're our guest, but that you have some titles that I think are really effective and are useful rather than your kind of standard stuff that you will see on most fitness blogs out there.
I really appreciate hearing that. Thank you. And actually, if you scroll back far enough, if you scroll back a couple of years, my stuff was, kind of very standard vanilla, what I thought my clients wanted to hear. And I've since, probably in the last year or so, gotten much smarter in a way that like now in hindsight seems very obvious, but I've just started asking my clients what they're struggling with and what they want to read about and what they need help with. I run a Facebook group that's grown over the last probably 18 months. We have about 1,000 members now. And I've taken to just, I message every member and I, thank them for joining and I ask them how I can help them. And when I welcome new members each week into the group, we have a post of like, what's the biggest question that you want answered? And I've started just kind of solving those problems and answering those things. And it's gained so much more traction. It's been so much more useful for people, because now when they say I'm struggling with, I'm not motivated, I've got a blog for that. I need to stop eating so much junk food, I've got a blog for that. Like, I've just taken, the recurring questions that I get, and I've turned those into my content. And it's been, I'm not having to reinvent the wheel and type out this, lengthy message every time somebody asks. And it's actually, solving the problems that clients have. So I appreciate hearing that they seem, unique and things like that, because I'm glad that they are. And I'm glad that they are solving the problems of a very specific clientele.
Awesome. So now you have a program that are you currently working on it? Have you finished it? Is it ready to be released?
So I'm kind of putting the finishing touches on it. It's called Gone for Good, and it's a 12-week weight loss program with a focus on maintaining your weight loss in the long term. That, like I've mentioned kind of repeatedly throughout the podcast, is losing weight isn't usually the issue. Pretty much everybody who comes to me has lost and gained weight repeatedly. So it's not that you don't know how to lose weight. You probably haven't been doing it in the most effective or healthiest manner. But, actually just like seeing the scale say less isn't usually the main issue. The main issue is that you can't keep off the weight once you've lost it. So my Gone for Good program focuses on like losing it for the last time. So it's a combination of your exercise programming. I've got what I call body blast workouts, which are 30-minute full body workouts at least 3 times a week. Then we've got your nutrition component, which is very individualized, starting with a lifestyle audit and a food audit of what your day-to-day is like, and then getting into your individualized nutrition targets, focusing on how many calories and how much protein you should be eating to lose weight. And then we've got a really important mindset mastery component where we start to look at kind of your limiting beliefs. Something I run into a lot is women telling me that they self-sabotage, that they start to see results and then they feel like they deserve a treat, so they go off the rails. So we do a lot of work on kind of building confidence, building self-esteem, building the skills that you need to, feel like you're capable and worthy of losing this weight and keeping it off. And I'd say that's really like kind of where the magic happens is, if you do any workouts consistently, you're going to see results. If you, focus on eating whole foods and, indulging in moderation, listening to your body, that typically works. Really where most women that I work with struggle is in the mindset. So that's where that component comes in. So I call it like kind of the 3-pronged approach where we focus on all of those things for kind of the whole, 360-degree approach that leaves you not just down on the scale, but also feeling confident that you're equipped with the skills that you need to either continue losing weight or keep it off from here on out.
Awesome. Well, Esther, a couple things. First off, you sound like, and we should definitely make you an honorary gymwit, because it seems like, or at least I think everyone's, your approach and your line of thinking is very much so in line with the way that we like to approach stuff. In sort of a moderate approach, long-term, good habits, rather than some sort of crazy shift, overnight. So that's, you should definitely be an honorary gymwit, and in doing so, you need to make like an awesome name for yourself, like a nickname. Like, I'm Chef Sonic. Ryan is Ryan. I guess Ryan doesn't have a name, but we're still working on that for him. Tony, our dietitian, has Tips with Tony. So you got to think of some awesome like stage name for yourself.
Oh my gosh, I would love to. I don't know if I can do it on the spot, but I'm definitely going to mull that over. And thank you so much for that. When I found you guys, I started listening to episodes like when I was doing food prep and like nodding so hard. Like, in my kitchen alone. And you guys, I think it was one of the episodes of Tipsy Tony, and just like nodding my head off. I'm like, yes, everything they're saying, I agree with. And it's just really nice to find other people in this industry who take such a sound approach and are like giving good advice. Because like we talked about, like there's so much bad information out there that I always, I'm always like ready to cringe at what people are about to say. And like with you guys, every episode I listen to, I'm like, yep, 100% like could have couldn't have said it better myself. So I really appreciate hearing that back.
Right, Esther. So you have a code for our listeners, and also please tell us where we can find you.
I do. I would be happy to offer any GymWits listeners 20% off the Gone for Good program with code GymWits. It'll be all capitals. Awesome. And my website is estherAvant.com. That's ESTHERAVANT.com. And the info about the Gone for Good program specifically is estherAvant.com/gone-for-good. But if you just go to my main website, you can get to the program from there as well. And I'm also on Instagram at Esther.Avant. Yes.
Awesome. Esther, well, thank you so much for coming on the Gymwits. How many more days do you have in paradise?
Well, it's funny you should ask. We're leaving Kauai in a couple hours, but I live on Oahu. So
okay.
Okay, awesome.
My life is paradise.
Okay.
Not to rub it in or anything.
Nice. Do you go surfing?
I don't. I've tried. I'm not really comfortable enough in the water to enjoy it. So I'm more of a hiker.
One more question. Do you like spam? Like the meat
the
spam?
Food, not the emails? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Even though I just, the other day we were at a restaurant and they give you your check in an old can of spam, an empty one. Nice. So I was looking at the nutrition facts, and one can is 1,100 calories.
Oh, sure.
That's I wouldn't be able to eat a whole lot more for the day. So they actually sell, probably not anywhere but Hawaii, but they sell single slice packages, in a little pouch.
Oh, yeah.
So I buy those. It's enough to get my fix and not enough to accidentally end up eating the whole can.
Yeah, no. I guess that's when for soldiers on a battlefield, you need a lot of calories that you can pack into a little thing. But I guess for everyday people, eating a whole can of spam. I don't know if I could eat a bite of spam, actually.
That's actually a great point, since that was how spam came to be. So that does make sense. But yeah, it's a hot commodity here. Actually, at some of the drugstores, they have the spam under lock and key, kind of like they have the razors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy. Well, I guess it is what it is. All right, Esther, well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your vacation and enjoy life on Paradise. And we hope to talk with you soon.
Thank you, guys. This was so awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
I didn't mean to come off as sounding anti-American in any way with this little tirade about us taking over, in slaughtering Native Americans.
As you probably know by now, we just recorded the intro, so Justin realized that we sounded like we were maybe ranting against America or something.
And that wasn't the
and we're just ranting against humankind, really. Just that humans are just horrible.
Yes. Humans are capable
we're
of good.
Not anti-American. We're just anti-human. No.
Yeah, that's good. We just don't like anyone.
No, we're not that type. I hate people like that. They're like, I'm not racist. I just don't like anybody.
I just don't like anyone. It's
But no, I think it's true. But no, we're not. We're not railing against our country. We've done enough of that over the years.
Sure.
But no, I think we're still happy to be here.
Yeah, very happy.
Any other country?
And we're going to give thanks to it tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. Eat a lot of. No, not turkey, but. My mom cooks West Indian stuff. She'll make it turkey, but I don't care about that. I just have the West Indian stuff. Yeah, we'll eat a lot of food. And thanks.
Yep. So, this is going to go out after Thanksgiving. So we hope that everyone in the United States has enjoyed their Thanksgiving by the time you listen to this. So we're wishing you a good Thanksgiving after the fact.
And since we're dumb Americans, if you're not in the United States, happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. Doesn't everyone around the world celebrate Thanksgiving? All right. Well, we'd like to thank you as always for listening to the Gymwits. Close us out, Ryan.
Oh yeah. All of our stuff is at thegymwits.com, including our Instagram and Facebook and social media and all that good stuff. And as usual, we have an Ask the Trainer episode coming up. So if you have questions, send them in now. You can email them to thegymwits@gmail.com, or you can post them on the website. There is a forum for the Ask the Trainer, so definitely ask questions. And that is it. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic, reminding you that truth does not sell.
We are the Gymwits.